Hello everyone, my name is AJ and welcome to the next lesson for the CSSG Education Team. In this video, I'm actually going to be showing you how to convert your main web page that you've been working on in HTML and CSS over into a React project. I'm going to be showing you how to set up React, how to create a React project, and basically turn this HTML and CSS website into a React project. React is the framework that CSSG uses to create web applications, and it will allow you to also play around a lot more with JavaScript, since the entire project would be based in JavaScript. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first thing that you have to note is that the project that you have here uses this general format, right? It has an index.html, it has a styles, right? A style page, which is a CSS file, and then you have maybe your one image for your headshot, right? This is just a sample demo that was created for Project 01. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to install Node.js actually. And Node.js, when you install this, it installs the Node.js installer, right? So this will allow you to actually create a React project. So this link, nodejs.org, you can press the download version for kind of your, for your purposes. Generally, you can install the one that just says recommended for most users, and that will be perfectly fine. Once you install this, you have to follow the instructions in the installer that is provided. And then from there, Node should be installed on your computer. All right. So now, how do you actually create your very own React project? Well, we actually do this within our terminal. So I'm going to open up a new terminal here. Now, if you're on Windows, this will generally be called command prompt, and the steps might be a little bit different. So make sure to check, right? You can follow along, but if you get errors on any of these steps, make sure to check the documentation online. If you just search, I guess, creating a React project on Windows, and it should provide the correct code to use. But this should work on most computers, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you want to navigate to your folder in which you want to create your project. For kind of the simplicity of this tutorial, I will be putting it on my desktop so that you can see it. However, oftentimes you'll want to put this either in, a folder where you keep all your GitHub repositories, or in a place that is kind of the most meaningful to you. So to navigate over, and you may have used Terminal a bit, or you may have not at all. But right now, when you open Terminal, you are at the root of your computer, or you're at kind of your home directory. But I want to now go to a subfolder within it, which is going to be this desktop. So I'm going to type cd, which stands for change directory, and then I'm going to go to desktop, and I'm going to press enter. Now, also the autocomplete that I have is actually a plugin, so you would have to type this in automatically. You'd have to type in cd desktop in order to move over to your desktop folder. And now you'll notice that when I press enter, that it says here desktop. So it shows that now I'm in desktop. And I can type ls, the ls command, to see the folders that are located on my desktop. So you can see right now I have this recycle bin item, I have this tums.db item. I believe both of these are hidden documents. And then you have the folder that you see located right here. Right? So this is where I want to create my React project. And to do this, I can actually type in npx, right? And then there is the next command. So npx is installed with Node.js. Then you type create React app, just like that. Right, so create React app, and then after this you want to type in the name of your app. So I'm going to call this actually Project 02 demo, and I'm going to press enter. And you'll see that now it is going to be creating a new React app in this folder, and you can see that right now it's installing. So this might take a while, but it's installing React, React DOM, React scripts with this template, and this does take some time. However, it will install everything that is necessary for you to work on and complete your project. So once this is done installing, we can continue with the next steps. All right, everyone, so now you can see that this is done installing, right? And how can you see that, right? How can you kind of notice? Well, the first thing is down here, you'll have now kind of this this percent symbol, and you'll have your directory, which kind of indicates that your steps above have completed running. However, you can also see here success created project 2 demo, and you also have these commands, right? So what you can do is, and you can see here, we suggest that you begin by typing. And so now that you've created this project, you've created this folder, we want to go into that folder. Remember, right now we're in the desktop directory, right? We're in the desktop, but now we want to open this folder essentially in our terminal. So to do that, I can type cd, write project 2 demo, and press enter. And now I will be within my folder, right? So if I press ls, you can see that these are all of the items inside that folder. I have a readme, I have this package JSON files, I have this public folder, source folder, node modules folder. And you can see that this perfectly matches up with all of the files in this folder when I were to click and open it, right? So these are the same because now we are inside of this folder, right? And so we can actually start our website by simply typing npm, right? npm space start. And if you press enter, your browser should automatically open, right? And you can see that now my website has loaded. And you can see that there's this weird, so there's this kind of rotating item, and then there's some text. And actually all of this right here, this is basically our template that we can begin working in, right? And so we can actually open this now in Visual Studio Code. And if you are not aware, you can actually, and right now this is currently kind of within our environment, but I can simply press Control C to close out of that. So now I'm back to the terminal. All right. And now what I can do basically is I can actually type code and then dot. You might not have this installed, but you probably, if you install Visual Studio Code, this should install automatically. If you type code dot into your terminal, it'll automatically open the folder in Visual Studio. So that is pretty cool, right? So now I have Visual Studio open here. I'm going to close that alert. And now you can see that I have all of these files here, right? I have my node modules, which if you open, there's all this stuff. And this is all stuff related to Node, right? So a lot of your React documents and Node stuff will be in here, right? Then you have your public folder, and your public folder includes like icons. It also includes an index HTML page, which you can actually ignore because we won't be using this. Even though we used index HTML for, for our other website, we will not be necessarily using this, and I'll explain in a second why. We have some logos, right? We have this manifest.json file, which basically, as you can see, it specifies like the name of the app and all of that. So if I open the browser now, I'm using a different browser, but if I were to change my tab, you'll see that this says React app here with this icon, right? And that's because it says React app here, and then it has the icons in this manifest folder. Then I can go to my source, and now you see a lot of things. So you see app.css, so this is actually the CSS for our app. You also have index.css, which is a bit weird, as you can see. App.js is where you'll be working with a lot, right? And so this here is basically the HTML for your app, right? And I'm going to explain how this works, because you can see this is in JavaScript right now. Then you have index.js, and index.js essentially, this is where just like your index.html, this is where your app will begin to load, okay? And so basically this index.html in the public folder, this mainly loads if for whatever reason JavaScript is not working. And so this is kind of your static web page. This is your, template that you load if if your JavaScript is not loading. However, if it is, it will begin at your index.js and it will begin loading from here, right? And so if you look, you'll notice that you have something that looks kind of like HTML, but not really. You have the same opening and closing tags, but now you have this weird like capital letters, right? And this is something called app, which you've never seen before, right? And typically when you use HTML, oftentimes your tags have lowercase, right? They're like, for example, head, or, P or UL, or, HTML even, right? Or table. All of the tags you use are generally lowercase, but here we have this uppercase tag, right? And this is the great thing about JavaScript and the great thing about React is that we can actually make custom HTML elements. And that's kind of where all of this starts here when we're talking about React. And this is something known as JSX, okay? JSX notation is basically HTML, but within JavaScript. And what that means is you can create your very own elements, right? So for example, I have this app element, right, that is created. However, we can actually custom make what this app element actually is. And if you open it, so if you right click and press go to definition, let's see, it might not actually do that, but if I maybe just hover on app, there we go, you can see that we have this function, right? This app.js, and we have this function. And then we return, right? We return HTML. Right? We return more of this JSX, which is again HTML within JavaScript, essentially. So we can custom make our very own HTML element called app with all of the stuff in it, and then we can render it in our index.js. Right? And you can actually create these custom components as well in, like, you can create other custom components and put them in app. Or like, for example, if I wanted to make a, if I wanted to have my table, right, for my, I guess, favorite things. So if you go over to like down here, how I have this favorite things, I can essentially make another custom element for it, right? And then just put it within my app, which is again, a custom element inside of this index.js. So this is really cool. And so now what I'm going to be showing you is I'm going to essentially be showing you how to do project 2, which is essentially convert your static web page into a React app, right? And so what I can do now is I can open up, right, this project 1. And you can see that I have this index.html, right? And then I have this style sheet. Those are essentially the two things that I have, right? So I'm actually going to open this also in Visual Studio Code by typing code and then dot. And you can see that this opens my entire project in Visual Studio, right? So this is my index.html. Now you have to remember that when we use static HTML, we have this head, right, which includes extra information about our page and also how to connect to various other sources, including other fonts and other style sheets. However, when you are working in the context of a React app, this is not needed because all of the things that we do here are done in a different way, right? For example, if you look, right, I import here app.css at the top, right? And I'm using this import notation, which you've probably seen in a language like Python or Java, but now you're seeing it in JavaScript. And I'm importing this app.css file, which is located right here. And this contains all of the, I guess, CSS for my app. So really what we have is we have this body, which contains all of our HTML elements. And we can essentially move this over into our app.js. So you'll notice you have this div for your app. I'm generally going to keep this div, but I'm going to erase everything else in it, right? So I have my div for my app, and then I can paste in all my elements, right? These are all of my custom elements that I made, right, on my other page. Well, not custom elements, but I guess my entire website that I made, right? And you'll notice the first thing is you have these errors. And you'll notice that these errors are with comments. So because we've now changed from HTML to JavaScript, we can't include the comment notation that we used in HTML. Now we need to include the comments that you would use in JavaScript, right? Now in this case, I'm actually just going to delete these comments just for readability's sake. And since we've moved from a different project, we will not need these steps. So I'm going to erase all this, right? All these comments. And you'll see now that everything goes away, except right here, you'll see that image, it says, JSX element image has no corresponding closing, and that's because we did not include a closing tag, and we can do that right here, right? And now I essentially have my app rendered, or I have all my HTML. And now what I can do is I can add to my CSS. So right here, I can essentially, right, I can create a comment in my CSS saying like custom CSS. I can go over to my old CSS file and copy over everything. Right? Now remember, we don't have a body here, right? We're not using a body, but we are using app. Remember, right? Our app here, right? We have this div with class name app, but we're not using a body tag anymore because we copied everything over, right? From from here, instead of using this body, I essentially copied everything in body, but not including it. So all the CSS that we applied to body, we can remove that and apply it to app. And we also removed all this other stuff. So we removed this animation, we removed the logo, we removed the header. So I can essentially delete all of this extra CSS as well, so that we just have the CSS that we need. Now, if I were to save and go back to my project, right? Now I need to essentially reload this. So I can go to my terminal, right here, and I can type in my project 2 demo, I can type npm start, right? And you will see now that it's going to load my website. And you can see that everything looks right with the exception of two things. One, the font, and secondly, the image, right? And I'm going to be showing you how to load this image next. So if I go over to the, there's a lot of stuff on the screen. Let me just close all this out. Well, I probably shouldn't have done that because now I'll have to navigate again. So I'm just going to say like cd desktop, cd project 2 demo. Okay, there we go. We're in the right place now in the terminal. But I have my picture, which I want to move over. And so all I can do is I can just take it and drag it over into my source. So now I have this headshot.png, right? And now in my app.js, right, what I can do is I can import this image. I can say import, right? And now I want to name it. I'm going to name this headshot, right? So I say import headshot, and then from, which is now going to be the source, I can now say where it's located. So because this is in my source, it's in the same folder, I could say /, right? And now I have my like location for this current folder, and I can type in headshot.png, right? And then end my line with a semicolon. And then here in the source, rather than including a string, I can actually put open, close curly braces. Now again, this notation will look a bit strange, but it makes logical sense that I type in headshot, right? So basically, instead of providing a string here, because this is in JSX, I am providing this object that's being imported. If I were to save, right, and essentially rerun this, by the way, usually you won't have to rerun this every time if your terminal is like proper. Because I closed the terminal, I have to rerun. You can see my image is now here, right? And so essentially, if you look between this and this, I have copied nearly my entire project over into my React project. The only thing we have not done, which I'm actually going to leave as an exercise for you to do in your second project, is to move over your custom fonts. Because custom fonts, they require a little bit of tweaking to do and a little bit of work to actually bring into React. But through that process, you'll learn a lot more about how all this works, like public and source, and the differences between using a static HTML and CSS page and a React page. So in this video, you learned how to set up a React project, and you also learned the format, like the structure of a React project, as well as converting a static HTML CSS page over to JavaScript. In the future, we will begin to actually add functionality to our app using more advanced JavaScript. See you all in the next video.